Excited to introduce today's panelists. We've got Alex Williams with Chartwell Consulting. We've got Kate with Clarkston Consulting. We've got Rupal with Kearney, and then Stan is the CEO of the Kormac Group. And in addition, we're also joined by Rick Wilmot, a former McKinsey engagement manager. Rick is an amazing member of our training facilitation team. Rick's going to be moderating today's session, and I'm really excited for him to just help curate an amazing session. And so, Rick, I'm excited to hear from you. And with that out of the way, Rick, I'm going to turn it over to you to run into the panel.
Awesome. Thanks, Japheth. So great to be here on the panel with you guys today. As Japheth said, I'm Rick Wilmot, former McKinsey engagement manager and leader at IBM Watson Health and a private tech venture incubator. Today I do a lot of things, but work closely with management consultant in a lot of areas, including facilitating forums like this one with leading consulting companies. So with that said, let's shift the focus to the representatives from those leading consulting companies. I'll introduce you guys each in turn. If you just take 90 seconds, 2 minutes to tell us who you are, a little bit about your firm. I'd love it if you could share perhaps why you work in supply chain consulting. How do you find value, passion there? And then lastly, I hope you might be willing to touch on whether you're hiring right now, and if you are hiring, are you open to hiring international candidates? So with that said, we'll take you guys in alphabetical order, and that puts Alex Williams from Chartwell first up. The floor is yours.
Brilliant, thank you so much. And I hope you guys can see me. I've had a little camera off warning. If that's not the case, I'll continue and I'll try and fix that in the sort of time between.
We can hear you fine, Alex, but we cannot see you at the moment.
That's a real shame. I'll crack on if that's okay, and then I'll try and fix that when I pass on to the next person, but apologies, everybody.
You know what, Alex? Why don't we just call an audible here, and we'll put Kate Pockness from Clarkston up first, and perhaps if the tech gods are smiling, we'll take you last, and we'll see your shining face as you're giving your
Good idea.
answer.
Thanks.
All right. So, Kate, all same questions. Introduce yourself, your firm. Why are you personally so devoted to supply chain consulting? And then, are you hiring, and are you hiring internationals?
Sure thing. Thank you for having me today. My name is Kate Pockness. I'm a manager at Clarkston. I've been with the firm a little under 4 years. Prior to that, have about 18 years industry experience, all supply chain, most of it in life sciences, anywhere from demand supply planning to ERP tool implementation, supply planning tool implementations, and then managing global supply planners. So my Clarkston experience is very similar to my industry experience. Have led and managed tool implementations related to supply chain, and have also been a supply chain subject matter expert, helping companies, clients improve processes, implement tools, guiding them in their decision making. So Clarkston, since 1991, has worked with global life sciences, consumer products, and retail companies, really working with them to advance their most complex global priorities. We leverage deep functional and industry expertise to really deliver solutions that fit their needs. Fun fact, I was a former client from about 18 years ago, so that was my first introduction to Clarkston. We are hiring, probably best to check the website because we do hire for specific roles when it comes to Clarkston itself. You do need to be based in the US and have the proper work authorizations. We don't sponsor any work visas. However, we do hire international clients that are based in India and need to be able to travel to Pune on a normal basis. So I would check out those websites. As far as, supply chain consulting, I think the most rewarding thing about it is using my experience, what went well, what did not go well, to help clients succeed. I mean, of course, when they succeed, I succeed. Whether it's implementing a tool, having the right structure in supply chain, implementing processes. So, preventing those fires that supply chain is so used to putting out is many of the reasons that I enjoy supply chain consulting. So happy to be here today and continue this conversation.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing. Well, Rupal at Kearney, that's going to put you up next. If you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about yourself, the firm, why you're passionate about it, and then, of course, those hiring questions.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. So my name is Rupal Deshmukh Siddhanti. I'm a partner with Kearney's Strategic Operations Practice. I started my career as an industrial engineer on the shop floor in Michelin. So I worked there for about 2 years. And I loved doing work on efficiency, and I wanted to do it far more broadly. That's what brought me to consulting. I've been with Kearney for the last 13 years now. And so I started as an analyst, I grew to partner. And what I do today is I help companies with end-to-end supply chain transformations. So that includes everything from setting up a brand new supply chain network. It could be a manufacturing and distribution footprint. It could be tweaking the existing footprint. I've also worked on a large number of cost takeout programs. And then I've also helped companies future-proof themselves against future disruption. So that's in a nutshell what I do. What I'm extremely passionate about as a person is turning complexity into clarity. That's what kept me in supply chain consulting as a whole. So when I think of supply chains, I think of them as the nervous systems of a business, right? You have everything from sensing what the market needs. You have the planning function, which is the brain that figures out what the body needs to do, right? You have the actual movement and flow of goods. So what I find is that when you're working in supply chain, there is no dearth of tough problems to solve, and it is a very vast area to be able to help companies drive tangible value. So that's what keeps me excited about supply chain consulting on the whole. We are hiring, we do sponsor, and best definitely is to check the website. This is the usual cycle when we start our hiring for the following year. And about Kearney, we are a 100-year-old operations firm. Our origin story was actually the origin of management consulting as a whole. So our founder, Andrew Thomas Kearney, was the first partner at McKinsey. We started together, and Kearney branched out and became the operations firm that it is. So today we are not only a global leader in strategic operations, we also help clients drive real impact, meaning execute the work that we give them recommendations on. And as a firm, we operate in 40 different countries, 54 offices, about 6,000 people is what we have globally. And I look forward to sharing more about the kind of work that we do in the questions that are next.
Fantastic. We will be looking forward to getting into that shortly. That brings up Stan from the Kormac Group. All same questions, Stan. Floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Stan Gwizdek with the Kormac Group. I currently serve as the CEO and founder of the firm. A little bit about my background. I'm actually a man of two worlds. The first half of my career, about 20 years, was spent in industry. Made it to a president level in GE aircraft engines, ran a business for Honeywell, and was going to be running a business for Textron when I decided to start my second career. I quit the corporate world and jumped into management consulting, and actually jumped into and started my own firm all the way back in July of 2005. A little bit about the Kormac Group. We are a boutique management consulting firm, and we're focused in on manufacturing companies in between about 200 million and 2.5 billion, so I would call them the middle market manufacturing firms. We really don't focus on any industry within manufacturing, so we've done everything from making pickles faster to making more airplanes within the same year frame as well, and a lot of different things in between there. One of the biggest things in all of that is throughput and getting product through the floor, but a large portion of that is the network of the supply chain that supports all of that within that as well. Why do I love consulting? That's a great question. It's absolutely the best job I've ever had in my life. I love what I do. No 2 days are the same. No two clients are the same. No problems are exactly the same from one client to another client, although the levers are all very similar into how we tackle them. Kormac as a whole, we really are a senior model from consultants. So the people on our team look a lot like me, in that they have greater than 30 some years of experience. Our average tenure is 33 years of experience. And with that, what we love, and I love how someone said that right before me as well, and said a little bit differently, really love to make success out of chaos. Because many times our client partners aren't hiring Kormac or any of us on this phone when things are going very well. They're looking for a solution to solve some of the issues that they have. So it's absolutely, we love diving in and helping the client see success and the smiles on their faces at the end of the event as well. We are hiring, and we are always actually looking for strong talent from a Kormac perspective. Our ideal candidate ideally has a mixture of both industry experience in addition to consulting experience. And we tend to hire more on the senior scale of that. As I said, most of our people, our average tenure is 33 years, but we will go between 20 and 30, even 40 years of experience with people on our team. We do hire internationally as well, as we do have projects from time to time outside of the United States, although the majority of the work that we do is in the Americas today.
All right. Thanks so much, Dan. Well, with that said, let's leave the Americas for the first time and rejoin Alex, whose camera seems to be in order now. So Alex Williams from Chartwell, all the same questions to you. Can you share a little bit about yourself, firm, and why you find yourself in supply chain consulting?
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And apologies in advance as well for the tech. Yeah, quick introduction to myself. My name's Alex. I'm an engagement leader at Chartwell, and this essentially means I'm responsible for the delivery of projects with a Chartwell team on site with our clients. My background prior to joining Chartwell at university, I studied chemical engineering, graduating actually just at the start of the pandemic in 2020. Chartwell ourselves are a global operations consultancy, renowned and well known for helping clients solve complex operational problems and supply chain challenges across a whole range of industries. Stan's sort of reference there, I think, resonates well with me as well. I think back to some of the projects we've supported. It could be making hummus, it could be making COVID vaccines or drugs, or Formula One parts for cars, and it really is a broad range. We typically support these manufacturing companies with maybe increasing their outputs, perhaps reducing costs, or of course optimizing supply chains, controlling inventory, and things like that. I think what I find most rewarding about working in this field is, and particularly with Chartwell, is the interface that we have with both strategy and execution. And by that, what I mean is getting the chance to spend time on the production line, particularly as a sort of newer member of our team, experiencing and understanding some of the problems faced by team members and operators there. But not only that, having the link right the way up to the boardroom, discussing the sales pipeline and perhaps the strategy for upcoming financial quarters. And I think that consulting is one of those fields, and I think particularly with the team at Chartwell is one way you can peak your engineering brain and sort of put that to good use with those production line problems, but also have those decisions and actions that you complete there influence boardroom decision making. In terms of hiring, the Chartwell team, you can probably sense from my accent, I'm from the London office in the UK. We do have a team out in the US as well, in Boston, and also a team in Europe, in Hamburg, in Germany as well. So absolutely, we are looking for a global pool of talent to join us, and we are hiring at the moment in the usual cycle. Typically, I think as one of the other speakers said, we do seek right to work in the geography to which you're applying, but of course that is in a few different areas, so do get in touch through the application portal to understand more for your individual situation. And typically our routes are often graduate based. Most of the candidates that join Chartwell are graduates, but we are open as well to exploring senior hire routes as well. Thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot, Alex. All right, guys. Now that we have gotten to know each other a little better, I would love to dive in to the meat of the session, the reason people are here, to hear your perspectives on some of the hottest topics in supply chain. So to kick it off, I'm going to direct my first question first to Rupal from Kearney, and then to Kate from Clarkston. And Rupal, that question is supply chain disruptions. They have been making front page news for years now, but the nature of those disruptions is constantly changing, evolving. What here in 2025 is the #1 question or topic that your clients are engaging you on around supply chain?
Great question. So the number one question I'm getting is the market isn't very hot right now. Demand is low. How will AI disrupt the way that we work? That's likely the number one question I'm getting. So I think the market sees that, or companies are seeing that demand is going to be slow and you're going to have to increase operational excellence quite a bit. And they're quickly seeing AI as an avenue to do that. So that's the current biggest hot topic that I'm running into.
Okay, great. Thank you. So Kate, same question to you. What is on the minds of your clients as they approach you today?
Yes, so as far as supply chain disruptions, really the first question we're asked is, what is everybody else doing, right? What are they focused on? And then of course quickly follows with, how can we be better prepared for future disruptions, right? There's always supply chain disruptions. There always have been, always will be. I just think some have a larger impact than others, right? Of course, COVID. I think people finally understood what supply chain was or is when COVID hit. So a lot of our clients really focus on, people, process, tools. Do they have the right structure in place? Do they have the right processes in place, such as S&OP, IBP, right? To monitor what is happening and make decisions, and then tools to support that so that they have data at their fingertips. Example, right now I'm currently with a client that they have an S&OP process. They know it's not necessarily up to par, best practice in the industry, so they want to tweak it. Example, they don't have a demand planner. They have a supply planner, they have a demand planner, right? But they have finance that is generating demand. So obviously there are different purposes and roles as far as a demand planner versus finance planning. So just working with those teams, using my experience, my colleagues' experiences to help show them the structure, who does what, and why it's important. So trying to influence the finance team that they are key and they do play a role, but not necessarily the same role as demand planner. So focusing on S&OP. Some other things, mapping out supply chains. So clients, so they know the flow of their product, where materials are coming from. That way, when a future disruption happens, they can quickly pinpoint, where they're going to be impacted. So those are some of the things we're seeing today.
All right, thanks. You made me smile with the people, process, tools thing. That's the first thing I remember from my first ever supply chain engagement. I still think it weekly at the very least. Some of the greatest first principles approaches that I've had in my career. So thanks for sharing.
You're welcome.
All right, so I'm going to move on to our next question. I'm going to put that first to Alex from Chartwell and then to Stan from Kormac. So we are sitting here in 2025, a decade or so into AI writ large going mainstream in business, 3-ish years into modern LLMs coming into the mainstream of business. Given that, how has all this changed the way you're working with your clients to solve problems? So Alex, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And I think the starting point for me for this question is thinking about the value add that comes from applying the principles of consulting and supply chain consulting to problems with the supply chains of businesses. And I think what comes to mind is a few areas. I think of inventory control, I think of improving lead times for their customers, and potentially even linking it all back to manufacturing throughput and sort of streamlining. And I think the common theme that runs throughout this, and an enabler for the three I've mentioned, comes from making accurate decisions with data that is really grounded in the truth and in facts. And I think in my experience across a lot of different industries, different geographies, with both very small companies, I mentioned the hummus factory that I mentioned a moment ago, all the way up to really big household names in the sort of pharma and chemical space. I think whilst AI clearly holds long-term promise, what I often find, and what many of my colleagues find, is that quite often some of the basics need improving before you can access this lever in the first instance. And when I say basics, I'm thinking of data accuracy, the systems that capture and process this data, and then thinking about improving factories and businesses, the problem-solving abilities and the structure that is used. And when I think of AI, often the kind of technology adoption curve is a process that people think about. You have innovators, you have early adopters, and perhaps late or early majorities to that. And you sort of referenced already, I think we're well through and into the kind of innovation era, and the innovators have sort of blazed the trail to show what is possible. And equally, many early adopters have jumped on that and are using and integrating this. But I think for the vast majority of big manufacturing organizations out there and smaller, I don't think the adoption has really come yet, nor necessarily for everybody is it useful to just plug in and to use. Maybe one example I can reference from a recent project, and I've just come from Ireland today back to the UK at a pharmaceutical site. Now, with the level of regulatory control and GMP and the impacts of things like Annex 1 coming in the last few years, this means that certainly what I've seen is many organizations haven't yet switched from paper batch records to digital BPRs and processing systems. So actually, the data that exists isn't necessarily ready to be sort of used and tested on AI models to sort of optimize supply chains. And I think that without these fundamentals and the work to get these systems ready for that, it can be, and it may be, either impossible or counterintuitive or productive to just use AI. And I think once addressed, AI can be a strong lever, but my perspective, certainly seeing the industries that we work in, is perhaps we're not there just yet in the big manufacturing space.
Yeah, all great points. My background includes work in document management, records management, and all of this curation, normalization of these records can be key to driving value from them, and it can be a bit of a mess behind the scenes, I think we all know. All right, shifting over to Stan, you highlighted your length of experience in the industry, certainly way back before AI or LLM what. So has the game changed, and if so, how? And again, could you share a specific experience if one comes to mind?
Oh, absolutely. I think when I started, we were still using rocks and chisels as a little bit of part of the data capture and data analytics. Wasn't quite that bad. But when we think about AI from an overall Kormac perspective, really we see AI, and I'll give an example here in a minute, but we see AI as a co-pilot alongside of our experts. So what it does is perhaps some of the menial tasks of data analytics and things like that as well, that typically could have taken 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks. We use AI to streamline the data. Of course, the data has to be good, and we make sure it is before we start down the process. But having the AI as a co-pilot along with us, in addition to the expert, we're double checking the results all the way through also, so that we're not making bad decisions and going down the wrong path as well. And an interesting thing about AI is AI can do a lot of great stuff behind the scenes, a lot of really good tools, a lot of good analytics, and also even planning for how to go get that as well. But AI can't go get those results for you. So internally in the organization, and this is something that we've all learned from a consulting perspective, is change management is the most important thing in the entire piece. So we've got to tie working with the people in the company, working alongside of them, winning their hearts and minds as we go through the data, the analytics, and the process to change, so that we can get the results stick, and then they can continue to improve from there when we leave. So a recent example, we had a client about 100 million of spend in plastics and metals. We took that data, ran it through our AI models, but also had our expert looking at the data as well. And at the end of the day, our expert and the AI models came to very, very similar conclusions at the end of the day, and then gave us the plan of attack on how to get it. So we used AI in the analytics, used our person as well as the double check. On the back end of that, we had our plan from an execution perspective. We were then able to execute with our person. AI then took a back seat and went away as we then did the execution to go get the results of sending out the RFPs, following up on the RFPs, getting the new vendors, all of that stuff.
All right, thank you. No, great points. I think one thing throughout my career that's been a through line has been all the great ideas, tools in the world don't matter if people won't adopt and we don't take account for the hearts and minds and the real change management of integrating into people's real work. So thanks for sharing that, Stan. Next, I'm going to move on. My next question, I'll target first at Kate from Clarkston and then Alex from Chartwell. We will certainly have a lot of supply chain leaders, practitioners, both with us today and watching this recording going forward. But others are students or perhaps in the industry today and thinking about what might it be like to go the consulting route when it comes to supply chain. So, with that in mind, I'm wondering if you'd be willing to share what an ideal candidate for your firm could look like, and then maybe we could add a little color. And if you'd be willing, might you be able to share a story of a candidate who dazzled you recently, and what made them stand out from the crowd? So, Kate, wondering if you might mind
Yep.
taking on that question first.
Sure. So, we look for candidates that are curious and problem solvers. It could be someone who has a background in operations, logistics, or, even maybe undergraduate degree, procurement, planning, or it could be those that are more technical, say like on the SAP side, if you know how to, leverage those tools. But really, we look for candidates that are eager and willing to dig into complex challenges and just dig deep. So as far as, interviews and what has dazzled me in the past, typically a part of the interview is role play where the candidate is given a case study or like a project and they're the consultant and I might be the client. We might have a third person with us. But basically, the ones that have dazzled, they ask the questions, they're curious, but then they listen, right? They show me that they're a good listener by listening to my answers. They can clearly articulate their thoughts to us in the interview. You may not know the topic 100%. I mean, typically it's a topic that you're familiar with or similar to your background, but showing us how you solve that problem in the interview is key. The younger candidate, because we do hire younger candidates, it's really how you adapt and how you can think on your feet, how curious you are. And then those that are experienced, really showing us that you can leverage your experience confidently and convey it in a way that relates or would relate to a client, but not too much confidence. So those are just some of the things that, candidates have stood out in the past.
All right, great, thanks. I'm a veteran case interviewer myself, and there is no cookie cutter formula to winning. But I think I'm used to looking for a lot of the same elements. So thanks so much for sharing, Kate. All right, same question to you at Alex. What's your ideal candidate for Chartwell? And then among that you've seen, who dazzled and how did they dazzle?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. And I think the starting point for this for me is the fact that I think I'm in quite a fortunate position because not only, as I mentioned at the start, I'm an engagement leader with Chartwell supporting the delivery of projects, but I'm also the head of our global recruitment team. So we're quite a small firm, which means that you get a chance to sort of demonstrate skill sets in different areas. And I've chosen to go down the recruitment route. So I get to see candidates both at the very early stages of contact with Chartwell, but also after they join and maybe even join the projects that I lead. I think one of the key areas that we look for throughout that recruitment process is leadership. And within that, a level of sort of unreasonableness that we often refer to that allows us to break constraints on site with our client teams. And if I think about a sort of memorable part of that process and a memorable candidate who is now with the business, I won't name them, they'll be embarrassed, but they're now with the team. And this is through one of the group case study stages. So maybe 6 to 10 candidates try and tackle a problem that we've set for them. And in this setting, it can be quite easy to sort of fade into the background, or equally as easy maybe to be a bit overbearing and a little bit too overpowering in that conversation. But with this person, we saw a real delicate balance of leadership, but empathy come through for others. Kate mentioned about listening to others as well as addressing your points and statements. But not only that, they challenged the status quo in a respectful, inquisitive, but a way that was really grounded in engineering principles. And that's something we definitely look for within Chartwell, that kind of core engineering inquisitiveness and desire to pursue that. When this candidate did, in fact, join Chartwell more recently, I think it's clear to see that this skill was maintained. And I was lucky enough to be running one of their first projects in the UK at a foam manufacturer. And this consultant was tasked with solving some problems to investigate variability in their manufacture process, causing that company to lose money. And I remember during the site tour, one of the engineers took us through a standard sort of explanation of how the plant ran. And I think it would be very easy to just take everything they said as accurate and at face value, but this consultant didn't do that. They respected their position and their thoughts, but then took themselves straight back to the production line to watch and interrogate that process. And what they actually found when they were there is that one particular part of that production line and one of the machines really wasn't running in the designed way. In fact, some of the code had been muddled up when it was set up. And actually that prompted a fix that then led to a reduction in variability, I think by around 30% during that project when it was trialed. And it was super sort of nice and validating to see that skill set, which we only saw a glimpse of in the recruitment process, that was maintained and ingrained and actually worked wonders for that person when on site and when on the shop floor.
All right, very insightful. Thanks. I love it when I stumble on 30% gains. That's a fun thing to do.
It's always nice.
Congratulations. All right, I want to move on to our next question. I'm going to pose it to Stan first, and then Rupal. So put yourself in the shoes of somebody new to supply chain, or even just curious about it and interested in introduction, understanding it better. What's the great place in your mind to start learning about the industry? So maybe books, podcasts, websites, something else? Stan, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the question. So as I think about supply chain and how, if I was brand new jumping into this, how I would learn it, I think a great first resource could be reaching out to actually people in the field and reaching out and saying, hey, I'm a new person looking to jump into supply chain. I really don't know a whole lot about it. I'd love to know more about your journey, how you went through your journey, and reach out to folks that either are in your network or either outside of your network through friends and other coworkers, and do informational interviews with them. Ask them what it was like. Ask them the successes and the failures that they saw as well. And I know from my side, being on the latter part of my career, I absolutely love helping the newer folks coming into the industry to know the pros and cons and perhaps some of the successes and failures and mistakes that I've made along the way as well. So gladly share that also. Another thing, there's really this whole website of Management Consulted. What I like about what you all have put together is there's, hey, how to do well at the BCG case study. It's a great example on your website for somebody new coming in to how can I land a spot in one of those larger consultancies. And then even the offerings that you have of helping somebody new, putting their resume together, helping them interview, all of that stuff I think is very valuable. There's two books that I'll reference. The first one was written by David Mazier on how to become a trusted advisor. Because as I think about consulting, when you're stepping into a new business, the biggest thing that you've got to gain to help win the hearts and minds and souls of the people that you're working with is you've got to gain their trust. And you've got to be able to gain that trust up and down through the organization to effectuate change in the business as well. So I found that book to be a very, very good, helpful book for me when I first started many years ago. Another book is actually a book that I wrote called Karmic Selling. And it's more focused on how to earn trust in the business and earn trust to win business and land new client partners also.
Thanks, Dan. Love that answer. Again, made me smile. Early mentor of mine in consulting said to me, we sell influence, and influence is bought with credibility and trust. And what are you going to do today to earn credibility and trust with your clients? Sitting here telling it to you 20 years later, that's how important it was to me. So I'm glad to hear it shared by you. Thank you. All right. So Rupal, for the newbies, how might they break in, learn more, level up?
So I love Stan's push on speaking to people who are in the industry, right? What I would say is learning about supply chain consulting is a combination of two things. One is doing your homework and your research. So you could do it in the form of reading about the SCORE model, which talks about plan, source, make, deliver, return. Those are the big four functions within supply chain. And getting familiar with what does it mean when you say planning, right? What are we really talking about? What does source consist of? So understanding that at the simplest level is a good starting point. Beyond that, I learn a lot from actually like watching videos of things. So there's certain things that I've found to be very helpful. So studying or watching some of the videos of some of the world's leaders in supply chain. So going through Amazon supply chain operations. I've seen videos on YouTube about it. Studying what DHL does, what Maersk does. So there's a wide variety of, like, if you were to look at the top 5 biggest supply chain leaders, right, you would be able to find good videos on how they operate. Other videos that I would recommend is studying what happened during the COVID crisis and beyond. Disruption is a really good teacher of seeing how the world of supply chain can impact business as a whole. So that's learning about supply chain as an area, right? And then the second part of it is really learning about the skills within supply chain. So I think we heard different variations of two things. One is giving great advice, and two is convincing those in power that it is in fact good. Andrew Thomas Kearney, our founder, had a quote which said, "Our success as consultants will depend on the essential rightness of the advice we give and convincing those in power that it is in fact good." So it's a combination of great problem solving, and second is really gaining the trust of people and having the fact base ready to convince them that it is good. So in terms of practicing for consulting, it's really about practicing your cases quite a bit. There is no alternative to do it. I loved hearing Katie talk about the fact that this forum offers practice. So practicing with people who've been in consulting is an excellent way to do it, because it really will get you in the mindset of how do I set up my framework. If you get stuck, a good prepper will actually help you figure out the next path, because we're not looking for somebody who get to the solution 100% every single time. We're looking for somebody who's open to feedback and can actually work with the client as well as with our teams to help find the right answer. So practicing cases, cannot emphasize it more. And the second part of it is, so if you think about consultants, it's problem solving and people, right? So cases will get you the problem solving part of it. But the people part of it, you really have to practice your behavioral questions, because one of the key things that we're trying to test is, are you going to be a good team member, and will clients look to you to work with them and give them advice? So practicing the behavioral questions, really practicing, it used to be called the STAR method. I'm hoping that it's still the same, right? But it's the situation, trigger, what is the action you took, and what's the result you achieved. But practicing both of those things is the key way in which you can actually crack consulting interviews well.
All right. Well, Rupal, I have good news for you. The STAR method is alive and well in training both newbies and mid-career and executives as well today. So good news there. I love how you and Stan both hit on some very similar things around the importance of not just smarts, but becoming a trusted advisor to the client. I think one short phrase that I've used with my teams is, being right is not good enough. Being right is table stakes, but it's not good enough in consulting. You've got to be able to convey that influence, and you've got to be able to have leaders with a lot on the line, look to you and be willing to really take that advice. So we're all growing in those skills today, I know, and it's great for those who are thinking about breaking into the industry to learn that early and often today. All right, guys, so moving forward, I have a grab bag of questions. Those who registered for this event were able to submit questions, and we've selected a few that I'd like to do in a quick hit format with you guys, so maybe just 60 seconds each. I'll go round robin. I'll start alphabetically, sort of mix it up from there, but question one is going to come to you, Alex, and then we'll do Kate, Rupal, and Stan. Alex, question to you. What is the skill that you are focused on developing here and now in 2025 to stay effective, to stay relevant, to stay on top of the supply chain consulting game?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think for me, it comes to making sure that I'm up to date on industry trends, and not only the trends that we see globally and in the markets and industries that we work with, but thinking about what are the impacts of these and opportunities maybe that these could give to our clients that we work with, because only then can we really understand how, we mentioned the advice we're providing, how we can tailor that under the potentially new guidelines or new regulations that are coming through. And for me, one of the key topics of discussion, I think I referenced this in one of the previous questions, but in the last few years, particularly in the pharma space and particularly the sterile manufacturing environment, is the introduction of Annex 1, which is essentially a sort of regulation that applies restrictions on how sterile environments can be, how long you can use certain sites and buildings for. which we've seen as a big sort of transformation for a lot of the clients that we've worked for, where initially this was a massive problem, and then it caused them a lot of supply chain problems, in many cases a lot of construction problems, where they had to build brand new facilities. But trying to phrase this in some ways, if we can, as an opportunity and an opportunity to get ahead of perhaps other of their competitors, and particularly, as I say, in the sterile space and within GMP pharma. That's been something I have tried to keep up to date with, and I guess one example where we can almost be ahead of the game with our advice and our recommendations for these clients we work with.
All right, well, you've given me a new topic to research. Thank you for that, Alex.
Yeah.
Kate, same question to you. How are you thinking about staying on top of the game in 2025?
Honestly, how to understand and apply AI in practical and valuable ways for our clients. Really, how to use it, smart, secure. Really just focusing on that. In fact, we have an internal structured learning around this, so we can use it the right way. So that's my focus for 2025 is AI.
All right, Rupal, same question to you.
I have the exact same focus, so I'll build on that. So how do I use AI to become more efficient day to day, whether it's in my client engagements, whether it's in my personal life? So I'm trying to learn how to build agents to do some of that. On the professional front, it is really about how to help organizations use AI responsibly so that they don't waste time doing it and they can get the maximum results. Now, we all saw the study of the stat that I read was that by 2027, 70% of use cases that companies are deploying right now will be shut down. So there's going to be a lot of wasted time and wasted resources in the area of AI as companies experiment with it. So my job as a trusted advisor is to help really figure out what is the right advice to give there and what are the right priorities to work on in the realm of AI. And I'm very excited about it. We have a partnership with Carnegie Mellon University, which does the same thing. It offers training for us as well as for executives in the area of AI. So I'm very excited about that and working on it very actively.
Thanks. I love that perspective. I think 2 years ago, both companies and people in industry were just showing up saying AI and then getting resources thrown at them. I think the luster has worn off to some degree, and a lot tougher questions are being asked now. And so I think your focus is spot on there. All right, last, Stan, 2025, how are you staying on top of things in supply chain consulting?
So very similar to both Kate and Rupal as well. AI is really top of mind for us as well. And similar to the way that Rupal, you said it, is how do we use it both personally and professionally? So for me, looking at maximizing my time running the firm, running the individuals, and focusing both on the front end of the business as well as on the delivery side as well. So looking to maximize AI usage across the business to maximize our potential with our client partners as well. And in addition to that, similar to the other two, really then taking a look at how do we maximize that with our clients and actually advise them on the ways to do that as well. And we have several current clients that are actually really deep into driving AI down and through and around in their business also. The second piece is then how to use it personally. And the personal side for me for AI, just in the past year, I've seen an exponential value for me personally in multitude of different areas that it's allowed me to prep for meetings much faster, understand industries, understand the trends within industries, both headwinds, tailwinds, etc. It allows me to prep, and in the book I mentioned earlier, I reference, I used to spend 3 hours prepping for every first client meeting prior to seeing them. That time is now much more drastically reduced. So using it personally as well. The second piece is not really just AI, it's really taking a look at automation, and specifically within manufacturing companies as they're looking at, and we're helping them look at their global footprint and perhaps getting out of China or the old China plus one strategy, or looking to reshore or nearshore closer to the United States as well. Automation is absolutely key and critical to make that happen. So we're understanding and diving deeper into the potential automations both across warehouses and factories as well.
That makes a lot of sense. a lot of great points here about the two different ways you can use both personally and in solutioning. All right, I'm gonna move on to our next question. I'll take this in reverse order. So we'll start with you, Stan, then Rupal, Kate, and Alex. And the next question is, what is one misconception about consulting, supply chain consulting, or your firm that you've sort of heard, been exposed to, that you'd like to clear up for the audience? So Stan, you want to take it from there?
Sure, absolutely. I think as we take a look at the middle market and specifically more boutique management consulting firms, Ivy League MBAs are not necessary for us. It's actually more the direct experience of on the shop floor. Rupal, I love the fact that you started on the shop floor from early in your career, so you understand what I'm saying. But getting that experience and rising up through the organization is actually much more important. So to gain the trust and to gain the credibility sitting across from a CEO of a, let's say, a $3 to $5 billion a year company, you can actually state, I've sat in your seat. I have lived your life. I'm not just coming to you speaking from consultant's perspective. I'm speaking to you from also an industry executive as well.
All right, excellent. So, Rupal, what's your take?
Wonderful. So I had an answer, and then I asked my team during lunch, like, what is a common misconception? And I really like something that a more junior consultant shared. She said that during her MBA, it was believed that when you get into strategy consulting, you're doing high level analysis and it stays at that level, right? She was surprised by the level of rigor and detail you have to go into sometimes to get to the right answer. So my take there would be that consulting is about almost like it's a team model, right? You have to, over the course of your career, you're going to go very broad, but you are also expected to go really deep when you're problem solving on a particular engagement. So I love that, and I thought I'd share it.
Yeah, I do too. I have a similar experience hitting the ground. Consulting project number one, Central Alabama. The first thing they did was take me to the high visibility vest and steel-toed boots store so that I could go into the coal mines of Central Alabama. And I don't think I touched Excel for the first 2 weeks. It was, talking to guys with hard hats on. So it was getting real very quickly. All right, Kate, what's your perspective?
Yes, I think a common misconception is that consultants just come in, do a project, offer some advice, and then move on. When, in reality, you're like an extended team for that client and that core team that you're working with. You work alongside them, you share the workload, make sure their work is sustainable in their organization so they can keep running the business. And just, especially the longer the projects, you really build relationships with them. So it's not as cold as some might think it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Alex, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, great. I think for me, one of the big misconceptions is around consultancy being this advisory service with minimal accountability to support it. And, maybe as Kate has alluded to, you've got to go around different places, you tell them some things, and then you leave. And if I look back at my Chartwell career over the last 5 years or so, we are so deeply ingrained with delivery. We used to have a saying, we don't use it as much now, but we deliver results, not reports for you. And I think that is so critical in the consulting space, where we go to the client site, we work with them typically 4 days per week, side by side. If that's developing a new MRP system, we will do that with them. If that is looking at a line crank and improving output, we'll be there, as I referenced before, solving the problems on the line with that team. And we're not just telling clients what they should do and hoping they implement the change while we leave. We're actually being there through the process. The graph goes up because we've been present and we've helped. And only then can we really be satisfied with the result and the achievement that we've delivered together.
Got it. All right, thanks so much for sharing, guys. We have just 4 or 5 minutes left here, so I'd like to end off with just one quick hit question. It's about your firm, and it's what's the one thing about your firm specifically that you think people don't know that they ought to know? Again, we'll just take this in reverse order, so we'll go Alex, then Kate, Rupal, and Stan. Alex, the floor is yours. And again, we do just have a limited time here, so let's try to stick to 30, 60 seconds.
Keep it brief. I think Chartwell are a small firm. It's important to recognise that. And step one for us really is making sure that our name is front and centre out there, not only with the prospective candidate market, of which today I hope I've introduced myself and my firm to you all, but also with some of the household names that we have now on the books as our client team. In terms of specifics, what you probably don't know about Chartwell, I certainly didn't before joining, but now can really appreciate, is the emphasis on the development of our consulting team. We work on small projects. You have daily and direct support from line managers on site with you in the locations that you work. And there are daily, weekly, monthly support systems and sort of development and appraisal reviews that really help and supercharge your career. We also have buddying, mentoring schemes, and every Friday we focus on training and internal development of ourselves and of our business. And I think that's a really powerful way of really supercharging your career at an early stage as a consultant.
All right. Thanks, Alex. Kate, same question.
Yes, I think very similar to Alex. We are also a small firm, and we really focus on culture. It's at the forefront. Sometimes consulting may appear as being cutthroat, but it's far from that at Clarkston. We share knowledge, we share wins, we celebrate together. You're not alone. You need some help. You have 5 people from 5 other projects that have experience that will help you. So they're always trying to find ways to, since we are mostly remote with travel to the client, have that community, that culture feeling. So we really focus on that.
All right, thanks. Rupal, what do we need to know about Kearney?
The level of support you get in running your own race and carving your own path. So I am a mom of 2, and I told you that I grew up in consulting. So one of the biggest things I was worried about is how I would navigate consulting when I had kids. And I have had the blessing of having at least 15 different mentors who've helped me at different stages of my career to help figure out what will work for me, what won't work for me. And my story is not the only one. There's like dozens and hundreds of stories like these where you've either had support in navigating life's seasons or you've had support in changing what you get to do at the firm. I have a partner who started a product excellence renewal lab. Like he started a completely new practice within the firm, and we now have 5 different labs all over the world. So it's just phenomenal how entrepreneurial you get to be.
Thanks, Rupal. All right. Last but not least, Stan. What would you want people to know about Kormac that they don't already know?
Similar to Alex and Kate, we are also a small firm. At the end of the day, what we offer from a client perspective is extreme flexibility. And what I mean by that is many projects may just require one subject matter expert. So we can go from one expert on a particular project solving the need to a dozen or so people on the projects. So what we do is we give the client exactly what they need, no more, no less. And if they have a targeted need in a specific area, a specific plant, they don't necessarily need an army of consultants showing up to fix the problem.
All right. Thanks so much. Well said. Well, that just about concludes our time today. I want to throw it back to Japheth in case he's got any closing remarks. But before I do, thank you so much for taking time out of your day, guys. I know how busy things get. We really appreciate all of your insights.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Rick, and to each of our panelists today. We really appreciate you. Love the insights that were shared. I've got a notepad full of notes here to take away home with me, and we really appreciate you. We'll make sure everybody gets a copy of the recording, and make sure to stay in touch and join our next panel coming early November. Thanks again, everybody.